This webinar is titled, How I Became a Published Author and Charter Member of Author Masterminds. Before we get started, let's talk about what this webinar is and what it isn't. This is not a webinar to sell anything. You will not be asked to purchase one of my books or to become a client of my publisher. As the title states, today's webinar is my story about how I became a published author and charter member of Author Masterminds, and why that may be important to you. Let me tell you who this webinar is for so you'll know you're in the right place. If you've ever wanted to be personally acquainted with a published author, wondered just why my publisher refers to me as the master of the impossible crime, would enjoy being on a first-name basis with a writer who shares your interests, and even wish you could share some ideas with them and sometimes give them ideas for a book, this webinar is specifically for you. As I mentioned, during today's webinar, I will not try to sell you one of my books. That is not the purpose of this author webinar. Oh sure, I always like it when someone purchases one of my books, especially when they ask for an autographed copy. Before we go further, I want to check with you to see where you are currently, and if any of this sounds like you. Do you like to read historically accurate, factually solid fiction? Other writers say the Impossible Crime series is their best whodunit mystery. Do you enjoy books like this? Do you like books that are filled with many twists to keep you guessing? Do you enjoy reading unpredictable and shocking crime series novels? Would you enjoy a Sherlock Holmes-like protagonist with a quirky sense of humor and a no-nonsense attitude? I've read hundreds of books and, like you, walked away wondering what was in the author's mind when their fingers typed the words. What was the author's background, experiences, ethics, morals, education, and even purpose for writing? Today's webinars will resolve any wondering you have about this author. In the next few minutes we'll spend together, I think you'll enjoy learning about me. I know I'm looking forward to meeting you, even if it's only online. If we were neighbors, we'd probably talk together in the driveway, at the mailbox, or over the back fence. Here's one thing I'd like you to know. I'm a charter member of Author Masterminds, connecting authors and readers in new, unique ways. I'll tell you more about Author Masterminds lately. I was born with a cruel affliction. I wanted every day in my life to be different. It didn't take me long to learn just how odd I was. Most people just want things not to change. Most jobs are geared to be as much the same on Friday as they were on Monday, which makes the greatest challenge in life learning how to deal with boredom. That was not for me, so I took up writing at an early age. I wasn't a good writer, but when I started, I was eclectic. I became a writer because I had no choice. I did not want to spend my life being normal, figuring out how to make it through the day without being bored. In every job I've ever had, I would finish the work I had to do in an hour or so, and then have 6 hours of being bored. Being bored is a horrible waste of time. When I worked as a grant writer, the moments of boredom were predictable. I would spend a month to 6 weeks putting together the rough draft of a grant. Then I would send out the various sections to the appropriate departments. The budget went to finance, medical looked over the research requirements, and administration would be given the staffing suggestions. Then I would wait for the departments to send back their inputs, and I would wait, and wait, and wait, and wait. Upon occasion, the corrections came back piecemeal, but most of the time the sections came back mere seconds before the grant deadline. As the old saying goes, if it wasn't for the last minute, nothing would ever get done. Between the time I sent off my rough draft and received the corrections, 2 weeks would have elapsed. If I was lucky, I would have been working on another grant. If not, during every hour of those 2 weeks, I was required to be at my desk doing nothing. And nothing frustrates me more than sitting at a desk on someone else's time with nothing to do. By being a writer, I can make every second of the day count. Even when I am revising one of my books, I am creating something new, one letter or phrase at a time. I do not have downtime. While the front of my mind is concentrating on the road ahead as I drive to the store, the rest of my brain is churning ideas, concepts, plot lines. I won't know what my brain has in store for me until my fingers hit the keyboard. And I must say, I am absolutely amazed at what explodes out of my subconscious. As an example, when I was writing The Matter of the Deserted Airliner, my treatment did not include the nuts and bolts of the crime. The impossible crime centered on a 737 which landed in Anchorage with no pilot, crew, or passengers. Then came a ransom demand. In my treatment, the detective toured the deserted airliner and saw nothing of interest. Then, out of the deep convolutions of my mind, came a trash can. Yeah, a trash can. All planes have them. Wow, I said to myself, how can I use a trash can on the airliner for one more item to deepen the mystery? So I had the detective take the trash can from the airliner and have the police forensics check for fingerprints. If the only fingerprints on the can and its contents were members of the airline crew, that was proof the crew had been on board. If they were unknown fingerprints, then a whole new world of possibilities opened up. I had the fingerprints match the crew, and only the crew, which forced the detective and police to assume the airliner had not been hijacked. It has taken me a long time to become a seasoned writer, and my experiences have not always been pleasurable. I've had far more failures than successes, and frankly, I cringe at some of the work which actually made it to print when I was a young writer. But looking back over my career, I find that there are 3 things that have made me the success I am and will continue to be. Steve Levi's 3 rules for success. 1. Finish what you start. 2. Let the story develop on its own. 3. Internalize my motto. If you do not have something unique, you have nothing. First, I finish projects. I cannot tell you how many people I know who want to become writers who never get off the dime. They start with a reasonably good idea and spend the next 10 years not writing. They dash off a chapter or 2 and run out of steam, or run out of ideas. I do that too, but I eventually come back and finish the book. If I don't like what I've written, it goes back into my computer for a better day and another rewrite. But I will finish what I start, even if it takes years. In my life, books do not suddenly appear. All of my books take years to come to life. When I write nonfiction, I may have to wait years for documents from archives across the country to reach my desk, or I spend 2 days of my once-a-year vacation at a branch of the National Archives. Then there are letters I have to send to descendants of witnesses to see if any diaries were written. Photographs have to be tracked down, letters discovered, and government documents located. I cannot hurry my history books. I have to wait for the letters and documents to be discovered or appear. When it comes to fiction, maturity matters. My next impossible crime, the matter of the dematerializing armored car, started out as a short story 10 years ago. It started as a short story because I did not have the maturity or real-world knowledge to expand it into a full-length novel. A decade later, I'm a more sophisticated writer, so the story could come alive. I can hardly wait to see where my writing will be in 10 more years. Second, I make my treatments as bare bones as possible. Whenever I write fiction, nonfiction, screenplays, or history, I let the subject move the action forward. I have learned to let the subject lead me rather than have me force the action or direction of travel. This is even true when it comes to nonfiction. The story is out there, I just have to find it. The best sculptors will tell you that the figure is already in the stone. All they do is remove the chunks of rocks from around the figure. As an example of how I let the subject lead me, in my current humorous novel, I have 4 80-something Egyptologists struggling with a sarcophagus, and one gets trapped inside. Doing research, I discovered sarcophagus lids are not so heavy that 4 people, even elderly ones, could not lift one. At 100 pounds, that's only 25 pounds apiece. 3 of them, less the man inside, could still raise a sarcophagus lid. As I was typing and thinking, I came up with the idea of one of them, the strongest, with his arm in a sling. I don't know why his arm was in a sling, just that it was. Now, with one Egyptologist in the sarcophagus and another with his arm in a sling, the lid could not be raised and the man inside is really trapped. Suddenly other comedic moments followed. When the 3 stole the mummy, they could not keep the linen wrapped so it gets caught on roses in the museum garden. And the sling will make carrying the mummy awkward. Maybe they drop the mummy and an arm snaps off and it has to be put in the sling. Maybe the police stop the Egyptologist and the cops wonder why the sling has 2 hands. Now the Egyptologists have to come up with a reason for the extra hand, courtesy of the sling. Still seeing what other humorous tidbits I can weave into the plotline. Maybe the sling will be caught in the sarcophagus lid when they are trying to free the other Egyptologists. Or the sling gets caught on rose bushes outside the museum as they are stealing the mummy. I don't know what I'll do. The book isn't finished. But the sling is going to produce a few laughs before the book is finished. Third, and most important for me, my motto is, if you do not have something unique, you have nothing. I try to write books on subjects no one else has written. The world does not need one more book on George Washington or the Civil War. But there is a real lack of good books on the Alaska Gold Rush. There are so few books on the Alaska Gold Rush that most people believe the Klondike Gold Rush in Canada is the Alaska Gold Rush. For my fiction, I concentrate on impossible crimes because no one else is doing it. An impossible crime is one in which the detective must figure out how the crime was committed before he can go after the perpetrators. As an example, in the matter of the vanishing Greyhound, the perpetrators are in a Greyhound bus with $10 million in cash and a dozen hostages and, in full view of the police, disappear off the Golden Gate Bridge. How did I become a writer? One day at a time, by not wasting my time on being bored. My mind is always churning what I read, mundane experiences during the day, and clips of what people say. As an example, as a substitute teacher, I deal with students every day. One day a student asked me if bananas had ears. What a concept! I'd never put bananas and ears into the same thought. So I did. I used the concept in The Matter of the Dematerializing Armored Car. At a critical moment, the suckered federal agents say the $10 million they were supposed to be guarding is gone. Well, they tell a policewoman helping the impossible crime detectives that the $10 million really isn't missing, it's just been moved. The policewoman does not believe them and says, yeah, and bananas have ears. When one of the federal agents asks what she means, the policewoman replies that it is an expression her nephew uses when he does not believe what he's being told. The student in real life, Jeremy, is going to get a copy of my book as thanks for his question. As a writer, I have come to grips with my cruel affliction. No 2 days are the same, or even close to being similar. One day I, as the detective, am trying to discover how a 737 with no pilot, crew, or passengers can land in Anchorage. The next day I am on the planet Cerberus, where giant sea scorpions are marauding through mining settlements on land. By the end of the week, it's a comedy of 4 octogenarian Egyptologists smuggling legal artifacts. Saturday, where I am examining the wreck reports of a ghost ship. Sunday, I'm working on the Alaska Gold Rush saga of how a boomtown went ghost. Every day is different, and now, to tell the truth, I am quite happy with my affliction. This is where Author Masterminds comes into the publishing picture. Author Masterminds is a different kind of website built to help readers discover and get to know an exclusive group of like-minded, serious, and dedicated authors. Each author's page includes websites, social media, and even contact information. Consequently, you get to know authors personally, not just their work. As I mentioned earlier, Author Masterminds connects authors and readers in new, unique ways. Here you'll find that every reader is a friend and every author approachable. My greatest pleasure in writing is attempting to connect with you, my readers. The results of a study by APTRA shows that my readers like to read historically accurate, factually solid fiction. They say the Impossible Crime series is their best whodunit mystery. Many describe the Impossible Crime series as unpredictable and shocking. Their favorite books are filled with many twists to keep them guessing. They enjoy my Sherlock Holmes-like protagonist with a quirky sense of humor and a no-nonsense attitude. If you feel the same way, let's keep in touch. Thanks for being here today, and I look forward to visiting with you again.